What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Krystal and you are watching Bond Book Reviews, where I put out weekly bookish content just for you. And today we are talking about what I read in the month of November for Believathon, as well as a couple extra reads that I managed to squeeze in just because I could. So let's get started. So in the month of November, I read a total of 17 books, which actually is the most I've ever read this year. So it was fitting that it was for Believathon that I managed to break my record from last time and read 17 books. In saying that though, the total page count was a little smaller than usual. My total page count was 4,349 pages. Of those 17 books, 16 of them were audiobooks and one was an ebook, and it took me the entire month to finish. I was on a massive physical reading slump. Like, I could not read unless I was having it read to me, and I was reading audiobooks. It was a serious dilemma. And it kind of changed my entire Believathon plan, but we can talk about that as we go through what I read. So first up, let's talk about what books I read outside of Believathon. So I read 4 books outside of the Believathon situation, and only one of them do I have a physical copy of, and that is this one, Once Upon a Dream by Liz Braswell, which is one of the Twisted Tales. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4.5 stars, I think, off the top of my head. I can't remember, but yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I do recommend it if you're after a Disney twisted tale or a tale that is a retelling. So can recommend that one for sure. This is the story of if Sleeping Beauty never woke up, and it's very dark. So if you're looking for like a dark twisted story of it, pick it up. The other book that I read that I don't have a physical copy of right now is because it's in my book tree over there, and that is This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay, which is a biography, autobiography, kind of humor journals of a junior doctor, and it was quite fun. I listened to it on audio while physically reading the copy, and it was the book that I read in the 1st of November. So the first book I finished off. I then read a really small 56 page ebook for a book tour. So I do lie, 2 of these books were ebooks, but it was only 56 pages, and that was for a book tour. It was called Beyond by Emma Corey. It wasn't for me. It was very different and unique in a bad way, and too short for the kind of story it was trying to tell. But if you're looking for a short story that's a little bit twisted sci-fi, maybe check it out. And lastly, I listened to Last Tang Standing by Lauren Ho, and this was for my book club biddies book club read for the month of November. I had 2 book clubs that I am always a part of, my book club biddies and my in real life book club. And my in real life book club I DNF'd, which was, I can't even remember the name of it, which was Dark Emu. I could not get into this because I was listening to the audio CD of this, because it was all like the only way I could get my hand on it, and the guy spoke way too slowly for someone who listens to audiobooks on like triple speed usually. So yeah, I had to DNF that one. Now let's jump into what I read for Believathon. So, in no particular order, because I've read these in all different order, I'll just go down the clues list, tell you what I read it for, and what I thought of it. I'm not going to tell you what these books are about. I'll have them all linked down below, so if anything interests you based on what I thought about it or the cover, go check it out down below, because I'm not going to ramble on about what they're about. So first up, to find the key to go into the manor, I needed to read a mystery. Now, there was a fun story about this. I had a book reserved at the library, Murder Most Unladylike, and it came up to the 4th of November and I still didn't have a copy because my hold hadn't come in yet. So I decided that I was just going to change my book so that I could get into the manor and actually start the mystery. So I ended up listening to Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. My core pile rating for this was 8.43, which comes out to a 4-star read. It was really quite enjoyable. It was fun. And I will never look at a scarecrow the same way after reading this book. In order to find the fingerprint, I needed to listen to or read a book from someone who was a different culture than myself. So I'm Australian Canadian, and so I chose to read Tamarind and the Star of Ishta by Jasbinder Balan, and this is from a Indian author and it's based in India. If you've seen my reading vlogs, you will know that it took me almost 2.5 weeks to read this book, and it was purely because it was a physical copy and I was not in a physical copy type mood. I was very much needing books to be read to me and audiobooks to be the way that I was getting through these books. So it took me a long time to get through this, not because of any fault of the book of its own. In the end, I gave this a core pile rating of 7.29, which equates to a 4-star read. And thank you very much to Scholastic for my gifted copy in exchange for an honest review. If you want a more detailed review, you can check out my Goodreads. It's linked down below as well. Next up, I had to find The Scream, and to do this, I needed to listen to an audiobook, and I love reading the physical copy as I listen to the audiobook. So I listened to Malamander by Thomas Taylor and read along to the physical copy as I was listening. Such a fun ride. I had heaps of fun with this one. That's what I love about middle grades, is they always take you on a pretty fun experience, and I overuse the word fun a lot when I film videos about middle grades, but I don't know how else to describe these reads. I gave this a core pile rating of 8.43, which equates to 4 stars. I then had to find The Crown. In order to find The Crown, I had to read a book that was from another world. I kind of had to loophole on this one and claim it, although it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. I'd already committed this to be the book that was replacing the book that I'd already picked, and I was running out of time, and that is The Edge of Everyone by S.A. Mackey. The Edge of Everyone by S.A. Mackey. And this one was, I guess, in another world. You can check out my reading vlog. I explain a bit more as to how it kind of loopholes and fits in, but pretty much it follows the story of a book that constantly changes the story for each reader that reads it. And to me, that's a book from another world. So I loopholed that one. My overall core pile rating for this was 6.5, which equates to a 3-star read. It was quite enjoyable. The writing was beautiful, but I was left a little bit short, unfortunately. I needed to find a torn page, and in order to do that, I needed to read a book with supernatural elements in it. And for this, I read Amelia, Fang and the Babaric Ball, or Barbarian Ball as I like to call it, by Laura Ellen Anderson. And I totally agree with Gavin. This is such a fun experience. I had a really good time, finished it in one sitting, and it was really fun. My overall core pile rating for this was 8 flat, which is a 4-star read. In order to get the spilled ink, I had to read a book that featured ghosts, and for this I read Ghost Boys by Jewel Parker Rhodes, and listened to this one on audio. My core pile rating for this one was 9.15, which is a 5-star read, and I can definitely recommend this one for great representation and also an awesome book to start conversation with children about Black Lives Matter and the tough subjects surrounding Black Lives Matter. In order to find a dagger, I needed to read a book that was in a dangerous setting. Again, this is one I had to substitute out last minute because I was running out of time and losing motivation quickly. So I picked up The Last Kid on Earth by Max Braillier. This one was so fun. Oh my goodness. So we bought this one for my brother-in-law to read for Christmas, and I kind of wanted to read it and make sure that it was age appropriate before we gifted it to him, and it was one of the only middle grades I had left on my shelf to be able to sub in, and I really enjoyed this. My core pile rating for this was 8.21, which equates to a 4-star. I think the only thing that lost me on this was a little bit of the logic, but in terms of overall enjoyment, it definitely gets a 10 stars for me. To collect the backpack, I needed to read a new to me author, and for this one, I was expecting a book from a publisher that never arrived, so I had to sub it out, and I read From the Desk of Zoe Washington by Janae Marks. This was one of the books that was shortlisted for Best Middle Grade on Goodreads, and I can see why. I had a lot of fun with this one. It made my mouth water reading about her cupcakes, and I really enjoyed her as a character. I would read about her in any other mystery she decides to solve, so I totally think that that should become a series of her solving mysteries. My core pile rating of this was 9, which comes to a 5-star read. For the footprints, I had to read a story with a prominent villain in it, and for this I chose The Witches graphic novel by Roald Dahl and Penelope Bagiu, and it was a really fun, great way to experience a loved story in a new way. And I have not much experience with graphic novels, and this was one of my first, and I loved the fact that it was a middle grade one. I had a lot of fun with it. So if you want to re-experience a story that you know and love in a new way with a little couple extra twists in it, definitely recommend picking this one up. And thanks again to Scholastic for sending this one for my way for read and review. And there is obviously obviously a Goodreads review of this one, linked down below if you want to go check that one out. My core pile rating of this was 8.71, which comes out just shy of a 5-star, probably about a 4.5. In order to find that hand mirror, I had to read a book with a beautiful cover, and so I chose A Treasury of Children's Classics. This is by various authors, and it was for just reading a beautiful cover, and it's beautiful inside and out. The best thing about this is it was gifted to me on my 10th birthday by my dad, so it was really, really fun to relive some of the stories in here that were read to me as a child. I guess that is the joy of the Believathon, is it helps people around the world celebrate children's literature. My core pile rating for this one was 8, which comes out at a 4-star read. To collect the chain, I had to read a book with a cast of colourful characters, and boy did I find a cast of colourful characters. People have told me so much about the cast in this, and I never believed that it was going to be as colourful as this. I read The Land of Raw by Sally McLaughlin, and I cannot wait to return to The Land of Raw. As soon as my book buying ban is over, that's probably going to be something that I add to my shelf immediately so that I can continue that series, because it was so much fun. I loved every character in that story. Even the villain made me like want to cheer for him. It was so good. I will admit that there were some periods where I kind of lost in a little bit, like some of the magic went away and I wasn't as lost in the story. So it did lose a little bit for me, and my overall core pile rating was 9, which does come out at a 5-star read. My most anticipated read for the Believathon, and the one that I read first because I just couldn't wait, was the one that incorporates folktales, and that was Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I went out and bought the entire box set for this because I knew that once I started I wouldn't be able to stop, and that's exactly what happened. This was a 5-star core pile of 9.32, I think, of 9.29, and it's just everything that everyone told me it was going to be and more, and I cannot wait to read more of this. And I see now why a lot of people say that they loved this more than Harry Potter, because I am on that side of things, loving it more than Harry Potter. And then in order to complete the mystery, I had to read a book that was published in 2020. I was really thankful that a lot of the books that I read were from publishers that had been released in 2020. I was planning on reading Tigers in the Tower, which was a book that I had received on NetGalley, but it didn't happen. So instead I read a book that was by Tammy Charles, and it's called All Because You Matter. I'll put it here and link it down below so you can check that one out. It definitely creates topic of conversation and makes the reader feel warm in the heart. So I can recommend it. It was very short, obviously. It's a children's book. It's not meant to be middle grade or YA in any way, shape or form. It is very much a children's picture book, but it was a great way to finish off the readathon with something that made me think. I did only give it 3 stars though, because I did feel that it was very, very hard for me to engage with the story when I only had the audio. I didn't have the pictures in front of me, so obviously I could only give it based on what was read to me. If I had the photos in front of me, I think it would have changed my reading. So yeah, so that's what I read in the month of November. I'm now off to Japan to go and eat some food. We're not actually going to Japan, of course, which is really depressing. Instead, we're headed to Toronto to go have food at this new Japanese restaurant I booked in 2 weeks ago for us to go here, and Anthony and I have been so excited ever since. So we're gonna go eat a bunch of food, come home and go into a sleeping coma. But until next time guys, happy reading.